Hey everybody, here's another full-on mixed media extravaganza. At least that's the way I see it. This paper is from 7 Dot Studios. Last year I won a giveaway on a blog, and they sent me some of this 6x6 7 Dot Studios paper. And so I only have the 6x6, so I'm patching it together. I didn't want the transition between the paper and the background cardstock to be so harsh, so I come in with my light molding paste and put it through this stencil that I cut on my silhouette. Basically I'm sealing up both sides where the seam is and covering most of the layout with this stencil, which kind of looks like sort of like bricks, only in a curvy pattern. Once that's dry, I pull out my gesso and I cover the whole thing in gesso. I should have gessoed it before I started, but I didn't really think about it. So I gessoed it after I did my molding paste. And I want to gesso the whole darn thing, and I want to be able to see the pattern behind it. So I gesso it, and then I'm like, I can't see the paper that I had. So I come in with a baby wipe and pull up most of that gesso off of the pattern paper so that I can still see it. And then I let it set and dry for a long time, and I come back later. And these are my homemade Pearl X watercolors. I describe how to create them in my video called The Case for Pearl X. Several years ago I made these, and let me tell you, I've hardly made a dent in them, and I use them quite frequently. Anyway, I've got a red, and that's a turquoise blue, and silver. Those are the colors that I think that's russet red. Here's the color of Pearl X. And I'm just sort of making them very watery and kind of getting them to drip in. And what I want is for them to sink down into the texture and sort of resist on top of the, to a certain extent, resist the top of the texture. And so I add water to make sure that happens. And I sort of frame it in silver. And then I have to dry it, and it takes forever to dry, so I cut a bunch of that out. But yeah, it took a long time to dry. But it's very shiny because that's just basically Pearl X. There's no other pigments in there. So it's just really shiny. I pull some scraps out of my scrap box. That scrap is club scrap, and so is that one. And these are very, you can't really see the blue, but it's heavily textured with like a basket weave texture. And then this red has gold foiled polka dots. So they're just beautiful pieces of paper, just little small pieces of paper. And I'm putting them behind my photo there to create a frame. And I'm loving the colors together and the way they play off the colors in the photo here. So I realized though it's too bright and I want to grunge it up. So I get this Hickory Smoke Distress ink, which I really love. It's one of the brand new colors, and it's up there with Vintage Photo in terms of my favorite distress colors. If I want a cool distress, I go for Hickory Smoke. If I want warm distress, I go for Vintage Photo. So I had to dry that. You saw I just direct to papered it because I wanted it very grungy. I just felt like that sometimes the distress ink is that factor that makes everything seem like it goes together. All these pieces from like this paint from one thing, and then 7 Dot Studios, and then Club Scrap, which is very different than the 7 Dot Studios paper. And just distressing it to me, it seems to make everything work together. So here I'm distressing the edges of the 6x6 mat. I just left this page whole, and you can't see it, but up close it has the little tiniest little hexagons, and it's a really neat paper. This is some black lightweight chipboard, super lightweight chipboard, ultra heavy cardstock. One of the things about this particular layout, it was very, very wrinkled, and that was driving me crazy. So I knew I needed to trim it down and mount it on something to flatten it out. And so I'm going to mount it on this chipboard, and I'm only taking a 1/4 inch in each direction, so it's just going to have a tiny little border, but I wanted it to have just a tiniest little border. I didn't want a big border because I really wanted that paper to be the background, but it was just really wrinkly and it needed to be flattened. So I'm going to put a ton of Scott, what's that? You know what it is. I'm putting a ton of it back there, and then I'm going to lay it down, and I don't get it super straight on here, but it doesn't really worry me that much. I wanted to get it flat, and it definitely does the job of flattening, making the layout behave. So now I'm going to think about mounting my photo, and I'm going to mount it on foam tape, because when you do a lot of this mixed media stuff, it makes the background so bumpy, and the foam tape helps, I think, the photo mat to sort of float on top of the piece. So that's awesome. And I'm just gonna get this all mounted on there. By the time I'm done with this, my desk is a crazy mess. I usually try to clean as I go, but this time I just was in the full, like, throwing myself into this experience and not cleaning as I go, and just scrapping full speed ahead. And sometimes that's really wonderful, like you're in the zone and you're just going for it. So I have all these little cut aparts. Oh, that I spelled out their last name, and that's going to be the title, and I did that with another, it looks like black ledger paper. It's another one of the pattern papers from the 7 Dot Studios, and I cut that with my Tim Holtz die. And then I've got all these little cut aparts. There was one sheet of cut aparts in the collection, and I cut them all up, and then I use almost all of them on this layout. So these are all just little cut aparts that I'm layering around the photo. I've made some banners with the cut aparts, and I'm putting them up in that corner. And of course I'm distressing everything, because I just really like that. I love that hickory smoke distress. It's just such a perfect cool gray. It's wonderful. So I'm going to mount that little circle that I cut out of the cut aparts on foam tape up there on top of my banners. And it says True Story. And then this little piece says Enjoy Every Day, also from the cut aparts. I'll glue that below the photo. Now I'm starting to think about the tag, and basically the tag says when the photo was taken and how old each person is when the photo was taken. It's just a simple white tag that I cut on my silhouette. I have a bunch of them in a drawer that I can reach for at any time. And I'm taking that same ledger paper and I'm going to mount my tag on that ledger paper and create kind of a border around it. Just so, I don't know, I just like the ledger paper and I wanted it to be on the layout. And I'm fiddling with it, but I'm going to glue it together and commit to it. And then of course distress it. So on the top of the tag, I wanted to stamp something. I got this old Stampin' Up! Stamp set that had these little, narrow, very narrow linear phrases. And I put love on there. And then I added some fibers from my stash that are just really soft and pretty. And then I get some silver sequins and I'm applying them with matte gel. With my tweezers. Those tweezers are kind of neat. They have a very sharp tip, and then they have a little scooper on the other side. They're in the bead section at Michael's, and they're not expensive. I can't remember, like, I think I only paid $2 or $3 for them. So if you are looking for some good tweezers, those are so nice because, like, if you have some beads or sequins or something that you want to scoop up, I've also used them, like, on my silhouette mat. If I want to pull some things up, I've used that little scooper on that. So yeah, I'm basically using these sequins like people use enamel dots. Just putting them in threes, various places on my layout. I'm attaching my tag. And I'm sorry this is out of frame. I didn't realize I need to fix my camera. I think I had zoomed it in for something and I need to zoom it back out. I'm now applying what's called Triple Thick by Americana, and it's just like glossy accents. Except you have to apply it with a brush and it's infinitely less expensive. So it took me a while and I just I skipped the middle, but I let you kind of watch me applying it so you can see how you go about applying it. And it has the tiniest little, you can just squeeze it out. And I just gently pat it. You can get this at Michael's also and use your coupon on it. I don't know if they sell this big bottle. I got this one at an art supply store, this particular one, but I have purchased Triple Thick at Michael's before. They do carry it. So I'm applying it in 3 places to make it look like there were epoxy letters and stickers available to me, which there were not. And here's the close-ups. And obviously the Triple Thick is still milky because it's not dry. And I love the texture and I love the shimmer. And yeah, I'm liking this layout quite a bit. I hope you like it too. So, and yet again, another fabulous stash dive. Using up the stash. Have a nice day.